We are here. And I am fresh off of this content boat where I hear every person wondering, how much content do I create? What do I do to get to my next millie? Where's the next set of dollars? And everybody's making you feel like you need to be all over these internet streets doing things. What if I told you that that's not true? So, this is not a training, this is like a venting session. I cannot tell you how much money is being left on the table simply by not creating the right content. And from a CEO who went from being on stage, dozens of times a quarter to being on stage 0 in 12 months, I tell you that in the midst of not being on stage, not walking all over the place, I have built a brand new business from the ground up. I have scaled another business that has a team, a physical team in person, not a bunch of virtual people in other countries. And not that I'm knocking it, but there's a difference. And if you're in the US, you understand what I just said. And what's so fascinating is how many people don't realize how control they are. So let me just talk about this a little bit because um, we hear this idea of, well, what do I create? How much do I create? And I got to do something called legacy in the midst of it. So then we think the answer is let's head to TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and all of these platforms and let me just create content and there is a place for it, but let me tell you where there's a better place. There is a better place called strategic content. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm not going to use this time to talk about the whole thing, but I want to give you an example of the millions of dollars that are just left on the table. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to replace the CEO and their ability to tell the company's story, to tell their story, right? Like that's just a fact. But what they don't know is that by isolating the content that they're creating to simple things like YouTube shorts and TikToks and things like that, where you've got to be fancy, you've got to have great editing. Imagine if I told you that you could like duplicate what I've done. So in the last 12 months, if you've been following me, you know that last year I was crazy sick. I had surgery and then I got diagnosed with a disease that doesn't have a cure. And that really changed the trajectory of everything I thought as a CEO. I've run multiple companies. I have one right now that's like my baby that I'm babysitting, and it's really my heartbeat because of the work we do. But what's true for me is that I also know this. I know that I would not have been able to survive in me creating the type of content that helped my team to see, like, helped my team, the people who support me and the people who are willing to still support me. Like they needed to know my thoughts, my feelings, my ideas. And yes, they're not sitting around. Think about it. These people are not sitting around watching all your Facebook. They are not doing that. They are not spending all their time scrolling through your feed on Instagram, CEO. And maybe this is CEO, leader, I don't know, coach, author, speaker, whoever you are. Regardless of whether you sell courses or you sell plumbing, be clear that your voice is the most important. So I got into this place where I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get back on stage as I figure out this disease. There's no way, as I had to figure out my team and teams and building new teams and stuff like that. This just is impossible. I cannot get on stage. I cannot be on. I sure as heck cannot be. I had to say heck. You see how serious this is? That's how you know serious stuff is serious. If I'm whipping out heck on a Wednesday afternoon or a Wednesday evening, you'd be like, oh my gosh, that's the moment where you clutch your pearls. Now, I was thinking to myself, God dang it, there is no way I'm going to be able to do actually any of it. I can't even be on Facebook. I had to delete Facebook because Facebook was like a mental headache. It was an emotional, like, drip. So instead of beating myself up over all the content that wasn't being created like we had managed in the past, guess what I did? I turned to my good old friend, podcasting. And even though this is not about podcasting. This is like how easy you could get something done and how much we complicate things. Like if you're a leader or a CEO and you're doing half a milli or a milli easy, like this should be a no-brainer for you. This is one of those few times where you're like, I want to take money and put it at marketing. No, make life easy for yourself. If you can't keep up with what the status quo is, then you got to develop your own status quo. Like I literally had to look at myself last year as a CEO and I was like, well, Tiffany Larkey, you're not going to do any of that stuff. And you're not going to beat yourself up about not doing that stuff. And you're going to turn down all the speaking engagements and you're going to sit your behind a desk. Sometimes you just got to know what season you're in and where you're at. And then once you know what season you're in, where you're at, what you're doing, what you need to do, you can find the way and space that works for you. So let me talk to you about content a little bit, because what you don't know is that when you try to hold up a schedule, right? And you're like, okay, we got this schedule and we're going to do this over periods of time. And we're going to create this content. We're going to organize these TikToks, come up with all these titles, do all the fancy things. You know what we're not going to do? You're not going to create your best content because either you're pressed for time like I was, you're rushing this thing, or you don't have the resources, or you're not hanging out with 10 editors who can take care of all your stuff. Now, real talk, the reason why I love two things I'm going to talk about that I did that were game changers for me last year. And I was reflecting on it because we had a really sweet coach who was in here from the East Coast coming to check us out inside of the studio. And I'm in the studio right now. And, with as much revenue she's doing, and she's like, it's hard for me to get the marketing thing consistently and to hire someone who can understand it. You're right. So I was like, you got to duplicate what I did. And that's what we've really done for all of our clients. Number one, podcast. Every CEO could wrap this thing up, podcast. Second thing, hands down, audiobook. I love the fact that I have stated these two things because let me ask you this. Where do you live outside in the world in one container? Like, that was such an aha for me. I've created thousands and thousands of video. I have an ungodly amount of content out in the world. I'm the first couple of pages of Google, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that because I've been running my mouth for 10 years in this space. And then I spent 10 years before that building businesses. So it's not about bragging at all, but it's the truth. And I was like, but no one's ever going to sit and watch all that content. Like, you have to have reality checks for yourself. For me, honestly, it was like, let me adjust this real quick. So for me, it was, you ever have the kind of work day where you're like, you start by sitting in a chair and then you automatically unbutton your pants because you're like, it's been one of those kind of days. I feel like a little Al Bundy-ish. Anyone ever feel Al Bundy-ish? You know what Al Bundy is? If you know what Al Bundy is, can you put hashtag Bundy? Al Bundy used to be a part-time hero for me. That's what people don't know. I used to stay up to watch that thing. I was like, this guy's misunderstood. He's tired. That's what's happening. So right now, everybody's like, let me see if I can see her pants. Let me see if they're unbuttoned. The truth is that overcomplicating the things we need to get done is where we get tripped up. And then we feel weak. Then we feel behind. Then we're lost. Then we're less than. Then we're frustrated. Then we're angry. Then we're bitter. Then we take it out on somebody. Then we kind of like, instead of operating on like we have our own level of ADHD, or like we can't focus on anything. For women, it's real. I think that women are, I've got Jack again. I'd love to see what you're drinking. But I think that I love that sound. I really love that sound. Like, I feel like it's like a life liberating kind of a sound. Anyhow, I think that not enough people take the time to actually acknowledge the fact that they may suffer a little bit from ADHD. And even though I don't believe in diagnosing anybody with ADHD, I think I don't think it's fair to label anybody with anything, because I feel like we're all inside. No one is a perfect formula, and no one is a real formula that's exact. And I today am clear that there is no such thing as a normal human. It doesn't exist. Especially since I see how many people, like in the state of Arizona, are willing to attach, like they mount flags about the president in their truck. And it's like important. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but it's wild to me, the kind of things that I just see people do. And I feel to myself, number one, there's no such thing as normal. Number two, I'm going to just give myself a hell of a lot more grace. And three, once I heard that there was a woman selling her farts in a jar and making a couple $100,000 a year, I really, truly, no, you laugh if you want. This thing is serious. She would make a couple hundred. Don't even fool around with it. Once I saw that, I was like, I'm going to give myself grace if I don't create the content. You get it? I'm going to give myself grace. If I think everybody should give themselves grace. But let me get back to this thing, because It is important that you understand that you should, by the end of this life, if you have something worth teaching and you're like, or you're thinking about your intellectual property, or you haven't thought about intellectual property, the number one thing I'd throw money at in the next 12 months, real talk, would be audiobook. Our team does like the greatest work ever in the game. Um, and the second would be everybody should have a podcast. But I'll tell you what, we did a podcast audit the other day of some audio, some big name people. And I was like, that audio quality is bad compared to ours. And it's not that I wanted to say it's bad, but it was hard to listen to. I could listen to 2, 3 minutes, but I couldn't listen to 40. Like it's tough on the ears. It doesn't feel as good. And it's like, man, you have this moment where you realize that you could have your game here, but why play your game here when you know that the game is being played here? Like, I don't know how else to say that. So the game is being played here, then you feel like you can't. But let me give you an example. So right now I'm in a studio. There's 1, 2, 3 huge lights in front of me, and there's lights above me and there's lights below me. But the truth is that like everybody has lamps in their house. And sometimes I see poor quality video on the other side, and then it's like, oh, I don't have those fancy lights, but you have lamps. Take off the lampshade. There was a time when I lived in, I think you call it Studio City in California. I lived in Studio City, and it was the very first time I started creating not courses but trainings. And I'll never forget, we took our bedroom and I bought this like big trapeze type thing that held this white paper, and it cost me like $300. But that was like, I almost had to sell I was going to say one of the kids, but I almost had to sell something to pay for this thing. However, I remember going, how the hell do you do lights? I don't know how you do these lights. So then, you know what I did? I took all the lights out of the house. I took off the lampshades and I just put them in front of me. Was it great? No, but it was the best of what I could do. My question to you right now is real talk. Did you do the best that you could do in the last 30 days with everything you touched? Last month, I made a decision to come from behind the desk permanently. And it's like, and I say permanently for this year and possibly next. And it's not that I don't sit behind the desk, not at all, but and it's not even about realizing anything about myself, but it's easy for me to get comfortable there. And not that I'm comfortable like I'm not working, I'm comfortable with not publicly embarrassing myself. Like I don't get rejected as much as I should. And with the kind of bats that we're swinging, I realize I need to be rejected more. And then in my rejection comes our growth a lot faster. Asking more questions, being in the right place at the right time, repeating myself in moments like you almost have to come from in front of your desk and go in front of whatever it is you're carrying on your shoulder and whatever you're trying to build. I think that's like one of the hardest things ever. Staying true to yourself when you're trying to build something is not easy because what it does is it you get presented with opportunities that like you're like, do I compromise? What do I do? But I'll tell you, our core values in our company, I swear, have been like the saving grace for me this year because it's really forced me to do this. Ask myself a question based on the core values that we already have and not at all try to do anything else. So, for example, we do the right thing even if it hurts. I've said that probably 1,000 times in the last year. But one of the things I was looking at, something that our team had like really felt that we mastered, only to find out that we had not mastered a thing. And instead of looking for a new principle or a new way, a new direction out, I decided to do something wild, and I just went back to the basics. The most simplest basic principles we forget, and it's because we're looking at other people and we're feeling like they have a magic pill, they're doing something that's really special that gave them the result. But I'll tell you what, work ethic and consistency are going to supersede any fancy special gadget or tool ever. Work ethic in humans and consistency, because what they're going to get you is they're going to get you to build something that those tools can't give you and that money can't buy. Connection. When you're able to connect to another person simply by them being able to trust you from far away, that's actually where the magic is. You get it? Like when people can trust you from far away, that's when the magic is. That's when you sell high ticket. That's when you sell high ticket over and over and over again. There was a woman that I spoke to today, and she's one of I would say she's a private client, but I remember hearing her say to me today, she was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, no matter what you do, you're not going to get rid of me. And I'm going to be your client for life." And I was like, "I am not coaching anymore." She was like, "Ha, see you on Monday. And I laughed as she said this thought and feeling, but it was a place of me reminding myself of knowing the greatest way that every CEO could up the game, up their business model, transform whatever's in front of them is simply by going backwards and looking back and doing these three things. So, first, picking up the phone to everybody who has ever bought from you. Like I have spent the last couple of weeks doing that. And I say ever, for me, I started with the last 2 years, 3 years, because the last 3 years have been the toughest. And I wanted to connect with those people first. But right after that, I'm literally going to go back to people who bought in like 2000 and I was going to say five, the people who bought products in 2016, 17, 18, 19. And why? Because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them. As much as it feels crazy, like that goodwill is something that money can't buy. Hey, how you doing? And you know what it comes off in is just caring. It's free. You could do it right now. You don't need anything more than what you have. You just need your phone and you need a desk and you need some time. You could you could literally pop a glass of wine in front of you or a coffee in front of you and sit down and get it done. You have the list, it's somewhere. Why is it that when we stop selling to them, when they stop buying, that we no longer have the product? There's so much money sitting around us and opportunities sitting around us, but I think because we're complicating it by listening to everybody to listen to someone else. So here are the couple of things, like 10 things I do right now till you radically change my game. Number one, hands down, call everybody who has ever bought from you. Second, get inside of the list you have and just pick up the phone and call random people. Oh, but I can't call people. They're on my list. I'm going to email them forever. Bah humbug. Stop. Three, go through your phone. Today, I went through my Rolodex on my phone, and this morning I called someone I hadn't spoken to in maybe 7 years. And he was like, "Oh my God, is this Tiffany Larkin?" I was like, "Yep, it is." And he was like, "I can't believe you're talking, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "Listen, let me cut to the chase. I need you to you're going to be on a podcast." And he was like, "Absolutely, anything for you." And he has a big name and he's built something really cool. And it was interesting because he's like, "You just picked up the phone and calls." Like, "Yes, because I'm going back to the basics. Why do I have to get time on your calendar to be human?" That is the stupidest thought ever. I no longer call my best friend like that. She drives her crazy. I'm like, "I am not getting on your calendar. We cannot be friends if I have to get on your calendar for a call. That's stupid." Mm, The craziest thing is, as much as she hates it, guess what? 9 out of 9 times she picks up the flipping phone, and she'll be like, "Tiffany, what do you want?" And I'm like, "What's going on?" Now, why am I sharing that with you? Because number 1, I'm telling you, call all the past customers. Number 2, call everybody on your list. Number 3, call everybody who's working with you right now, your clients, as much as you can stomach, and be like, "Hey, I just wanna thank you for doing business with us. Hey, this is just a call for me to say, hey, thank you so much. I just wanna let you know." They don't pick up, write it in the mail, write it on a postcard, send it in the mail. Stupid easy. That doesn't work today. Before I leave, I'm gonna send out 5 pieces of mail. And the 5 pieces of mail are a sheet of paper with me handwriting it because I can't seem to find postcards. Apparently, we ran out of the one I wanted. I'm not gonna make up something, so I'm just gonna write on a sheet of paper and be like, "Hey, this is Tiffany." I'm gonna take a marker, draw a big heart on it. It's just gonna say, "Thank you for doing business with us," blah. We don't need to have official things to be human. You could totally run a $20 million company and be super duper human. It is absolutely possible. And so many CEOs and people have just left that behind. The fourth thing I'm going to say, get inside of your phone book on your phone and just call the people and text the people them that are connected to you. And if you're like, "Tiffany, I'm not going to call her. I haven't talked to her in a long time." Then why is she in your phone? And why are you crowding up yourself with things you don't need? Move the hell on. Like, I'm serious. Like, if you got people on your phone, and you're not talking to them anymore, leave them. Let them get the hell off your phone. What are you doing? That don't make no sense. "Oh, well, I haven't talked to her in years." Well, then great. Let's not talk to her in this life. Let's be done with that. We have this like we have like this safety middle of the ground. Well, I'm gonna keep her number in case what? Hell freezes over. Nothing frustrates me more than doing things that don't make sense, being in the middle and gray in some areas. I gave you 4 things I want you to do. I'm going to get to 5. Let me do a quick time check. I'm going to get to the other 5 in less than 4 minutes, and then I'll be done. So, where are you gray? Where have you compromised and where are you gray? As a CEO, I did this in the month of July of this year, at the end of July. Lots of stuff hit the fan in an area, and I went, oh man. So I wrote a list. Where am I gray? What areas am I gray? That I didn't have a ton of areas, but it could be with team members, with people, things like that. I didn't have a ton of areas, so I wrote down about, I don't know, 6 or 7 things on this list. And then instead of me trying to tackle it myself, guess what I did? I started picking up the phone and asking for help. I asked for help, and not only did I ask for help, but I also I I asked for help, and then after I asked for help, I basically said, um, I started hiring. I hired, I got people, I paid money, and it's like, well, Tiffany, I don't have the money. Sell the couch. I'm so serious. I don't have the money for pay for it because I knew that if I was weak in those areas, like hell was I going to be the one to button it up. I wasn't going to be the one to get us stronger. I wasn't going to be the one to take us to the next level. That just wasn't going to happen. So because I knew that that wasn't going to happen, we might as well just play within my strengths. Playing within my strength was like, okay, someone else I know is stronger or I don't know, and they're going to come along over here and they're going to make this thing tight. I want this thing to be airtight and I don't want to not get to the goal. Where are you weak right now? Like, be honest with yourself. It's just a little list, tiny list. You put it down, you let it be, you take a deep breath, and you're like, it's okay. The next thing on this piece, the next thing here is that, so after you make a list and you're clear of your weaknesses, you got to go find someone to help you do it. And it cannot be your cousin Pookie. It cannot be your neighbor who's really good at web or tech. It cannot be your cousin who knows how to like design stuff. None of that. It's got to be someone for real. The sixth thing is you need to install Audible. You need to install Audible. Like, I'm sorry, but every human needs to be feeding their mind with something. And foolishness on social media is not the answer. Oh, but Tiffany, there's so much useful information that, like right now there is this yes, there's useful information, but let me give you an idea of how wasteful information is when we can't vet it. But the internet, the TikToks of the world, allow us to believe that because a person could record something that looks fancy, that it's real. Let me give you an example. It's called fire cider. So fire cider is this thing that is running the world rampant. And if you've heard of it, please let me know, because like it's running the world rampant and everybody's like, oh, I'm going to get fire cider and I'm going to make it. So they're making it in hordes. And guess what? The recipe calls for you to put jalapenos in this thing. The recipe calls for you to put tons of some habanero, scotch bonnet, all types of stuff. I said scotch bonnet because I'm Jamaican, because it's just how we roll. But it requires you to put all types of things. And so you think to yourself, okay, I got to put this stuff in there, only to find out that most of the stuff that they're asking you to put in there, yes, it's real. Yes, it might be real, but the truth of the matter is that most of the stuff is bad for you. Like, it's bad for you. Fire cider, the world's losing their mind, and everybody has this beautiful picture and all these vegetables, and they cut them up and then they put them inside with apple cider, and then they put rosemary and thyme in it, and then you leave it for 4 days, and then you take these things. And yes, now is rosemary good for you? Sure. Is apple cider vinegar good for you? Sure. Lemons, etc. But if you read like every single doctor talking about it and every single functional medicine doctor, they're like, this has never been proven. We don't know where the hell this thing came from. And I don't know why people are doing it. And they're also like, that's too much jalapenos. That is too much habaneros in there. That will burn your throat. This will cause a such and such. And it's so funny because I look at the amount of people who are losing their mind. Now, why am I saying this? Because you're listening to people who actually don't know what they're doing right now. Right the hell now. You are implementing things in your life and in your business who they don't know what they're doing. And the information's wrong. And you don't know it because it looks pretty. And you don't know it because it's been presented well. One of the things that I love so much about Audible is that Audible is not going to let trash up there. When it comes to information, now, I'm not saying that there aren't things up there that I disagree with. Tons of stuff I disagree with. But that person has to go at length to create an asset, a piece of content. And in that piece of content, it has to be approved and go through a process in order for you to consume. Respectively, same thing with Apple when it comes to podcasts, which is why I said to you, a book, no, not a book, an audio book that goes on Audible. Because now I get the dose of the thing that I needed in one dose, one swallow, and I really get to get in bed with somebody, and someone can really get in bed with me in one moment. So fire cider, I'm sure there's a lot of great people who have tried it and it feels and tastes good, but you only need a quarter of those things to have the same, respectively, the same impact on your body. And being I happen to have a disease, I have an autoimmune disease that is every other day I feel like it's trying to kill me. And it I know that only a quarter to half of those things, if I really am sick or I have the flu or whatever it might be, that they're going to be the game changer. Turmeric, sure. But do you know that here are these people spending $30, $40 for the pitcher? So the recipe is going to tell you to put like, have you ever heard of it? It's like everywhere on Instagram and TikTok, like stupid. Let me tell you what goes inside of it. So just visualize, you don't see the person's face, but you see this beautiful picture on a butcher block, right? And then they put in like um cloves of garlic. Then they put in a half, like a whole orange cut up into these beautiful cubes, lemons, beautiful cubes, rosemary, thyme, horseradish shredded or cubed. Do you know what horseradish is? Yeah, horseradish. Then ginger, turmeric, honey, and then you take it, the liquid inside of it is apple cider, apple cider vinegar. He was like, "Is it apple cider?" He's like, "Is it beer goes inside?" If it were mine, it would, but it's apple cider vinegar. You cannot consume that much apple cider vinegar, America, like world. You cannot. You can have it's two couple spoons, but you can't pour yourself a little cup like this and just sit there and sip on the weekend. You can't do that. Like I don't know, and it's wild how many people are like, "Oh my gosh!" Now, if you do the math on it and you went and bought everything fresh, and I think there's variables, so there's like a recipe that might have a lime in it. There's, I think, hopefully I said rosemary and thyme. So you take whole sprigs of these things and you push them inside. Turmeric is $15 a pound. Okay. I want everybody to get clear. Good garlic is about $3, $4 a pound. Horseradish is anywhere from $2 to $6 a pound. When you're done with this pitcher, you have spent $38 for a pitcher that you believe is going to be the thing. It spoils in about 4 or 5 days. So you can't keep it for 3 weeks, even though some people are like, oh, you could put it in a jar, keep it for 2 weeks. Most people are not doing it like that. They're going to put in a regular pitcher, stick this thing in the fridge and sip on it. 90% of it's going to go to waste. You're going to sip it, I don't know, 7 to 10 times because you really can only take like 2 tablespoons, maybe 4 a day, maybe. And I'm not a doctor. I cannot tell you how to health advise yourself or fix yourself or do this stuff. But I'm telling you from experience that I know that that won't work. Now, here's why this is important. Because the truth is that if you actually spent time in person or talk to somebody whose life is impacted by their ability to consume said thing, then you would know that 90% or 80 to 90% of what people are dealing with and or that sickness, if you wrap yourself around turmeric, ginger, and honey, for the most part, for the most part, you'd be good to go. Which means that I have a solution. I'd have a great or perfect or amazing solution for $4.85 versus the $36. This is no different than in your business. You hear that there is a mastermind with such said person and he's hanging out with Tony Robbins. And so I've absolutely got to be in this mastermind. I spend 70K on it, 50K on it, 30K on it. I believe it's going to be the thing that I need because everybody gives me the illusion because everybody is jumping into the pot. When the truth is that number one, that is not for me. It does not help me with my problem. It does not touch the symptoms that I actually have. And number two, I missed the fact that I ran into this thing because it was all hype. Oh no, but he's helped me quite a bit. He helped me to see two, three things really important. Okay. What about the other 75 things in your world that are being neglected? Like, let's just talk about that. Let's just talk about that. I feel like this is the most overlooked area of growth and the number one place that we're just relieving. Like, there's so much money being left because of the fact that we follow the hype, we lose money, we spend the resources, we spend the time, we curating ourselves to believing that this is the answer, only to find out that we've missed. We could have spent that, we could have done that, and we could have had a much more delicious outcome. I think I'm on number 8. I hope so. Let me take a sip and see if I can find out. Hold on. Mhm. Mhm. You don't have enough intellectual property recorded. So, if for whatever reason I died tomorrow, the truth of the matter is that I've got so much intellectual property that this trademarked company could continue without me. Now, I know that that sounded dark and like crazy, but the truth is that, and I say this company, this brand, and it would have to change in the way it approached the market. But make no mistake about it, intellectual property, there's a couple of pieces as to why this is so important. And I don't want you to think I'm saying record more. I'd rather you stop recording things and I'd rather you start. Actually rather you just come into the studio and let our team help you. But I'd rather you create one asset, one thing for the whole of next year, and you do nothing more than that. Do you know that the market is not really looking for you to be diverse? They're just looking for you to be clear and for you to be present and to solve their problem. That's it. That's really what the market's looking for. They're looking for clarity, they're looking for diversity, and they're looking for you to solve their problem. I feel like sometimes we get into we get into a sea of in over our head, and we don't really think we don't really do enough in we don't really do enough for ourselves in acknowledging how far we've come. So this is probably number 9 or 10. You've come so far and you've acquired and done so much for yourself. You don't showcase it to the world because you're like, this is bragging. I don't want to feel arrogant. I don't want to present to be arrogant to the world. And it's not about that. Nobody's trying to learn from, connect with, hire, build, partner with anybody who's average. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. And yes, you can put your things up on a board and you can have a testimonials page and you can once in a while have a customer or client say something nice about you. But I really, really want to make sure that you know that we are the only people, like you're the only one who uh, wants to hide from the world the accomplishments that you've made. Everybody wants to know what have you done and what makes you better. But they kind of need you to say it every day, all the time. Somewhere in your world, in your company, there needs to be like a broken player that is talking for you on your behalf, in front of you, that is telling the world, this is what she's accomplished, this is what he's done, this is what that company has done. Having it in a little video on your homepage is not okay. Having it in the first chapter of your book is not okay. There's probably 10,000 videos out there that talks about the fact that I got to $1 million before I turned 30. There's probably 1,000 videos that talk about the fact that dot, dot, dot. There is 1,000 videos that support X. But in addition to that, I have a responsibility to repeat it. Here's my last, and here's what I'm going to wrap this with. So, the last part of this is I want to remind you that there's going to be people in your lineage. If people talk about legacy, and let me tell you what real legacy is, it's really actually leaving a roadmap for those who are going to come after you to shorten the cycle. I feel like in our human evolution, this is what we're responsible for. I do. I believe that. You call it culturally, race, for women, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. But for me, it's like they're not going to have to go and read 35 books to try to figure it out. Imagine that I'm going to create massive amounts of intellectual property, but just more importantly, my voice, my tone, my belief, my point of view. And because of it, I'm going to leave a roadmap and breadcrumbs for those who are going to come after me, for them to figure out how to get it done fast, how to win, how to be okay with themselves, how to actually build a 7-figure business, how to build a 7-figure brand, how to help people with your hands. Like they're not going to have to wonder and they're not going to have to guess. Imagine if you had something like that of your grandmother or your great grandmother or your great grandfather. Imagine if there was a roadmap where you could figure out how they were. Haven't you heard about someone in history? It's one thing to have someone else tell the story, but no one's going to tell the story about what I did and how I did it better than me. If tomorrow was the last day, have you left enough of an impact out in the world? Have you done the thing? Have you put yourself in the position, like real talk between you and me? Have you done the thing right now that the world has one asset that talks about who you are, what you believe in its entirety, and your entire story? And it could be, you know what? We segment it. So, like the book that I just released that I'm going to go on tour with, that is about my business story of getting to 7 figures, right? I'm thinking I have like 2 more books in my heart One of them is going to be how I built seven-figure brand. The other is going to be true to being a woman. And let's say I had another one that had to do with team or company culture. Let's say I had a third that raising daughters, like I don't know, family base. The reality is that uh no one, like, yes, we could read the thing, yes, you could write it down, but I really do believe there is nothing more impactful than audio. I feel like audio leads video because audio is intimate, video is stimulating two things, and I can get in my head about the video, but I'm in my heart when I listen to audio the entire time. And if you agree with me, if you know what I'm talking about, can you please just let me know? Audio for me is kind of the game changer. So that's it. Like, do you have the thing? Does it exist? Is it anywhere? Is it anywhere where we can actually touch, we can feel, we can look at, we can smell, we can sniff, we can sift through? And as I finish and end this day today in this version of Tequila with Tiffany, I say to you, um, if you like, there are, I think I'll go back and edit this and make sure that there are examples so you have access to, I think, two or three of our podcast, and an access into our audiobook, even though I don't want anyone to go and look for it yet because I got to do it during the launch period. Um, they're simple, easy, clean examples that you could ask yourself, okay, great. Well, what is my version of that? And if you're like, I don't know where to start, then I say, absolutely, let us help you. With that, I'm going to say, I adore you. I hope that this week has been great. I can't wait to hear what you've been going through. All of that has been in my head all week in these streets. I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.